With the rise of technology, we're seeing violence more than before. Because of this, we're becoming less sensitive to it. I believe that exposure to violent media can lead to desensitization towards violence. According to Miedzibroska, people who are constantly exposed to violent media, such as video games, is linked to lower empathy. People in this participants in this study showed lower empathy towards people who are in pain. When we're exposed to violence, it conditions our mind to normalize what it constantly sees, and is no longer processed as alarming as before. This is supported by Mosley, who found that constant exposure to narratives that violates your moral standards make you more accepting of it over time. In this study, we're going to talk about 3 counterclaims. First, violent media does not cause desensitization. Second, desensitization depends more on the person. Third, violent media does not affect how people react in real life. Now that I've laid out the 3 counterclaims, I'm going to start with the first one. Some people believe that violent media is completely harmless. However, study shows that repeated exposure can make people feel less towards violence. One concern about this is the effects of the violent media is only short-lived. But according to Aliyah claim, familiarity towards violence breeds desensitization, which means that it still affects people regardless, even in small ways we don't realize. Even if it's only short-lived, it is still undeniable that people who are constantly exposed to it are most likely have longer effects over time. The next argument is the view that desensitization depends on the person's personality more than the exposure itself. However, according to studies, exposure to violent media is still a huge factor in desensitization. One concern about this topic is that people who know right from wrong are less likely to be affected by this. But according to Muslim, people who are constantly exposed to narratives that violate your moral makes it more easier for you to accept the behavior. Which means that even though you know what is right from wrong, it can't protect you from being influenced by it. The next argument is the view that media does not affect how people react in real life. Even though not everyone has the same effect towards, doesn't have the same effect towards violent, it doesn't mean that it does not have any influence on how people respond and behave in real life situations. One concern about this topic is that what is seen in the media doesn't reflect how someone behaves in real life. But according to Aliyah claim, chronic exposure to violent media doesn't automatically make someone aggressive, but it reinforces the already existing aggressive traits and affects how a person act and treat other people over time. In this, now that now that we're now that we're done Now that we've talked about the three arguments, let's bring this all together. Let's wrap up. Earlier, I discussed that the rise of technology made violence more accessible to the eyes of the people. My claim is that continuous exposure to violent media reduces empathy and can shape someone's morals. This is shown in the evidence I provided earlier that exposure to violent media that violates your morals can make can lead to lower empathy. The reasoning behind this is that it normalizes violence and becomes more familiar. And also that aggressive tendencies can strengthen it. In this speech, I discussed that violent media causes desensitization. Desensitization does affect not only the personality, and violent media affect how people react in real life. I hope the next time that you feed yourself with this contents, you think about how and what it is doing to you internally.